So what do you think of facial recognition?
I like when people recognize my face when they're supposed to.
That's important.
Somebody just last night said, anyone ever tell you look like Louis Anderson? And I said, what, you mean dead?
Oh, ba-doop-boop. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I was kidding, of course. But he was sincere. He seriously thought and I said, if I dye my hair red and just kind of talk like kind of sarcastically, maybe I could pass for Louis Anderson. Anyway.
Did you ever watch that cartoon? I think it was called Louie.
Yeah. Maybe he thought I looked like the cartoon. I don't know.
Maybe.
How you guys been?
Good.
Good.
We got a plethora of things to talk about today.
Yeah, there's no shortage.
Starting with, as Patrick alluded to, face recognition. What happened?
Recognition.
Well, it sounds like a good idea until you dig into the details, and then people start freaking out about privacy.
Yeah, well, so we'd like to believe that facial recognition systems are 100% accurate
and non-biased.
And I can tell you they're not. I'll give you a personal story. So I'm an identical twin. For the listeners who don't know this, I'm an identical twin. And
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Spitting image of me. And so
It's
go
me.
on big. Yeah, it's not you.
I was going to say, you and your brother could pass off some serious scamola.
And they have.
Right? So we typically go on vacations together like every other year, whatever, and we bring the whole family. And at one point, one of my kids was trying to unlock my iPhone with facial recognition, and all they did was turn it at my brother's face and it unlocked.
Oh,
I was like,
man.
Not cool, man.
Not cool.
So you'd like to think facial recognition is like the panacea of, security. It's going to look at your face and know exactly who you are.
Well, but it also has built-in biases, right? Against,
yes.
certain ethnic people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The thing to know about, I programmed against it in the past, and it only gives you a percentage chance. So even if you compare two very similar photos, it's going to say 99%. It's never going to say 100% because there's just no way unless they're exactly the same picture.
Right.
And so basically you're asking AI to make a determination on the odds that these two pictures are of the same face.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it's really up to the users of that AI to determine what threshold percentage are we going to call it. Okay. Right?
Right.
Yep.
Right. So
exactly.
But what's weird is this particular story, and this is a story from the Washington Post. ID.me gathers lots of data besides facial scans, including locations. Scammers still have found a way around it. So there is a guy, we'll post the link here, who was able to create verified ID.me accounts, which is like a legal ID site, right? Where he could then go and scam. I believe he was scamming unemployment.
So wait a minute,
$900,000.
What does ID.me do actually?
I think it's there to verify the identity of a person who's making a claim versus whatever their license, like a formal ID. So you don't have to be in person with someone.
Huh.
But it uses facial recognition, make sure that the picture matches, and make sure that make sure that your face, isn't already in the database somewhere.
Yeah, right.
That would be a nice step.
Which is funny because this article shows 4 almost identical pictures of this dude in a fake curly orange wig.
Right.
And yeah, they were like, yeah, that's him.
Huh.
Like 4 different times. And I get it. Like I said, facial recognition isn't 100%, but.
So what's the scam here that they're gathering data besides face scans?
Yeah, so now what they're trying to do is they're gathering other metadata. And we see this a lot in when you're trying to understand, let's say, for example, someone connecting to your website, or someone, if I'm using my phone and I'm connecting into Google, Google does the same thing where they'll take metadata around that connection. What type of phone am I using? Have I used this phone before? What location am I in? What location was I in the last time I used it? Because if I just used my Google account in, say, New Hampshire, and then I show up in Moscow 30 seconds later, that would be a little weird. So all of that metadata, what's happening now is ID.me starting to use a lot of that metadata around like, okay, where is this person? What's their connection? What's their IP address? What's the phone, etc. So it's just interesting
right.
that, you'd think that facial recognition is super hard to fool. And honestly, it's not really that hard.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's talk about flying.
Let's talk about flying.
Yeah, because there's never a problem with security on airplanes, right?
Yeah, nobody should ever be worried about the aviation sector.
Don't worry
What I
about
love about this particular article is it starts off and says unskilled hackers linked to years of attacks on aviation transport sector.
That's a pretty hard diss.
I know, right?
Are you going to take that line down, Dwayne, when they call you unskilled?
Right? Not cool. Not cool.
Not cool.
So this is a report. It's a Bleeping Computer article, but it was a report by Proofpoint about TA2541 has been consistent about its attacks methods relying on malicious Microsoft Word documents, which we talked about a little bit last week, and we've always talked about. I mean, it's probably one of the most common ways to deliver malware, and in this case, we're delivering a remote access tool or a RAT. It is interesting. Like, I think you talk to the normal computing user and ask them name a rat, and they probably couldn't name a famous rat.
Mickey Mouse.
Ratatouille.
I think Mortimer was probably.
Yeah, Mortimer.
Ratatouille and his brother.
Yeah.
So in this particular case, they were deploying the async rat. But honestly, if you look at this article, there's like 15 or 20 different rats in there. There are tons of remote access tools. Async rat, WSH rat.
So why do they think it's a script kiddie? Because the code was unmodified, or they were just taking off the shelf?
Yeah, I think it's because it's just off the shelf components, and it's the tactics. Honestly, they did pick a vertical, so good for them in their business. It's all transportation, so aircraft, fueling, yachts, charter, planes, cargo, flights, etc. But
so someone who went to B school,
right?
An unskilled B schooler,
and master that vertical. And this is an interesting thread of continuity in that. So in this case, they're deploying, via Word, but the payloads that they're pulling down are typically over a shared drive structure.
Sir, what objects are you exactly trying to embed or link? Call back to the 90s of Windows, object linking and embedding.
Oh, yes. So in this particular case, I mean, and there are a couple of our articles this week are about this. It's getting much harder for attackers just to deliver malicious code over email.
Yeah.
So now a lot of hackers are moving over to shared drives, whether it's OneDrive. In this particular case, it was Google Drive. We have another article about Teams. Slack has been used. Discord has been used. So honestly, hackers are pretty innovative in where they're storing malware these days. So
but we also have an article about people using online meetings to impersonate CEOs and CFOs to get money.
That's weird. I mean, how do you not know who the CEO is?
Well, so what they're saying is that what they do is they say, let's say they hack. I'm a CEO of a company. They hack my email. They invite someone in finance to a meeting. They then put up a picture of themselves instead of video, and they claim that there's an audio problem, but they need a wire transfer put through right away. And it's coming. The email came from the person, and so the hapless recipient's like, okay, you should verify that should be verified.
And there's an easy way to verify this kind of thing when somebody claims they're somebody you know. Ask them a question that only the two of you would know something about.
Dwayne and I have several of those questions lined up from our gaming background. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, for me, somebody hacked one of my friend's Facebook accounts. This is before it was so commonplace. This is the first one I saw. And I got this Facebook message that said, hey, Carl, how are you? And I said, fine. And the person asked me a question about needing some money. And I said, hey, where was it that we first met? or what state did we go visit together with, and I listed a couple other, when we went on a camping trip or something like that, and the person just went away.
Yeah.
Simple.
I think that's another form of multi-factor authentication right there.
It is.
Paul.
Absolutely.
In words.
It is historical.
Right?
Historical factor authentication. Shared history.
I just got an email from somebody who wants to know about the studio, how much we charge. And this happened. This is the second time I've gotten such an email. The first one was all about, we're going to send you something by the bank, and it was just your basic scam, except that they added this layer of, faux credibility by claiming that they wanted to hire the studio. And of course, anybody who has a studio today is out of business. But, so thinking that it's like this glamorous thing where people are going to clamor for business, they're thinking, they'll play to your vanity and say, oh, we want to spend $10,000 with this superstar who's going to come in and record an album.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, by the way, send us $1,000.
Yeah.
Right.
To prepare for it. Yeah. We have to verify if you're in an interaction that doesn't have a second. I mean, visual meetings are great. Like right now, you can hear me and you can see me. And so,
for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part. So you can verify, who I am, and it's multi-factor authentication. It is the definition of multi-factor authentication is identifying somebody in more than one way.
Right.
Now, we normally think of it as something you know, like a password, something you have, like a credit card or a key, and something you are, like your DNA or your fingerprint. Right. And by bridging across those different factors, you get better security. But now we're talking about other ways that you can do it, which is informational background information or just out of band. So if I was on a meeting like that with the CEO and I wasn't the CEO, I would say, okay, you're going to have to text me just a validation of that information so that we have a second confirmation.
Sure.
And then that would make it very much more difficult for the hacker to authenticate that.
Yeah, they'd have to call up the cell phone company and do a SIM swapping attack
in short order.
It's just like anything else. And Patrick, I think you said this last week. When you put up so many barriers, it just becomes a nuisance and they move on. Hackers and scammers are looking for easy targets.
Right. Easy prey.
And unfortunately, there are plenty of easy targets out there.
Yep. All right. What's next?
None of our listeners, though.
Well, actually, I think we should stay on this
the virtual
bandwagon of people social engineering others. So if we take a look at the FBI warns of BEC attackers impersonating CEOs in virtual meetings. BEC, I had to look up what BEC meant as I was reading through this article. All it means is business email compromise.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would throw an acronym in for that.
And that's what I was just talking about. That's the example of people joining. So the way they send the meeting is because they compromise the email of that person.
Yeah.
Yeah, or they just join an existing meeting. But at this point, if you compromise somebody's corporate email, then at that point you can use that pretty easily to log into, and whatever platform you're particularly using for your meeting. I know there are several customers I've worked with in the past that are using Zoom, of course. And Zoom has the ability to federate with your domain. So once you figure out how to break into somebody's email, it's really easy to then go over to Zoom and start up some meetings and send some emails saying, hey, why don't you join this meeting?
Yeah, federation.
And like you said, Patrick, you use a picture instead of a live video. Mm-hmm. Now, the only issue there is if it's not a normal picture.
Some of them are saying they're using deep fake audio.
Yes. Yeah. And some of them honestly don't even need to. Oddly enough, just jump on and say you're the CEO and you have the account that looks like it, but which I don't quite get because, Patrick, I know if you jump in a meeting and be like, if you didn't open the meeting with, well, we should send some tomahawks over there, I would know it's not you, right?
Don't get me started.
Then I'm not sending you any scratch tickets.
Yeah, social engineering is difficult to protect people from because it's designed to fool you. It's like close-up magic. It's not. You're not supposed. It's been well thought through. They think about what you will and won't accept. And the rise of deep fake video and deep fake audio is going to make it even harder.
This is not the Carl Franklin you're looking for.
So, and in that reference, I think the best I guess is kind of like a deep fake. Have you guys been watching I think it's The Mandalorian?
Yeah.
I just started watching it.
At one point they do have, I'll spoil it for you, but at one point they do have Mark Hamill.
Oh yeah.
As the 1970s Mark
It was
Hamill.
pretty
And
good,
he's
I
walking
thought.
around and he's talking and he's interacting, and it's Luke Skywalker from the 70s.
Wow.
With everybody around.
I
It's
thought it was
awesome.
well done. I'm sure I'll get more hate mail about that than I do about Tomahawks.
I mean, maybe I'll hear it's actually an actor who just really looks like him, but I was like, damn,
I
that's some
can't-
impressive CG.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that was CG. I saw that myself, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Right.
And it didn't seem to cross the uncanny valley.
No.
Yeah.
So yeah, that technology is getting way better.
Well, even in the last Star Wars movie 9, the CG was so good. It was way better than even the first 3.
You
Oh,
just
heck
watched them again, didn't you?
I did.
Carl?
I just watched all 9 of them in a row last
Wow.
week.
Holy crap. Okay, all right. I
not
got a
back to
question
back.
for you. Do you watch them in chronological order?
I asked them the same question.
I watched them in episode order. So, the first one I ever saw was 1977, of course, episode 4.
Same with all of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I saw 4, 5, 6, then 1, 2, 3, but I never saw 7, 8, and 9. So I figured rather than jump into 7, I would go, in
1,
order.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was good. It was, the continuity was pretty awesome.
Yeah, you knew who everybody was.
Right.
Spoiler alert: Darth Vader's his father.
Oh my god.
If you haven't watched that by now, you
don't care about Star Wars.
Right.
If you
Yeah,
never-
exactly.
If you don't know that, yeah.
Uh,
All right, so Microsoft Teams, not to be outdone, is also subject to hacking. So this, in particular, this isn't impersonation, but it's distribution of malware.
Yeah, this one's interesting in that, like I said earlier, lots of hackers are looking for different ways to deploy malware, malicious executables that they can get users to run. And any way that looks as trusted and as normal as possible is a great way to do it. So, deploying over OneDrive and Google Drive is a common thing. Like I said, Discord and some of the off sort of file sharing platforms have come into the mix. And now, Microsoft is warning, hey, listen, we're seeing an uptick in Teams being used.
Yeah.
If I remember the statistic, is it 270 million people in Teams? It's got to be around 270 million, something along those lines. So it's not a small target, let's put it that way, of people who have Teams. And if any of you have installed Windows 11, I believe Teams is installed by default on Windows 11. So
the Teams client.
I'm not a fan of Teams. I don't. It's my least favorite meeting.
It is mine as well.
And I don't use it. We don't use it. One thing I will say though is that Zoom got beat up quite a bit in the beginning of the pandemic because they had some serious security flaws that they fixed. It's Teams' turn. And Microsoft's used to getting beat up in this way. So I do assume that they will fix it. But
I don't know how you would, though, because in this particular case, I think it's being used as designed. Like they're putting executables up into Teams and people are downloading them and running them.
Yeah, but how about, are you talking about they're doing it after they've breached someone's account, or they're doing it without having, because the meeting is too open? The meeting is open to people to join.
No. It's not like you're joining a Teams meeting with a bunch of other people and you throw this executable in there. I think they're just using it as a delivery content platform. Like you con someone into clicking a link which opens up Teams that downloads a file, or you con someone into jumping in a meeting with you under false pretenses of being a support agent, and you give them a malicious file over Teams. It's an interesting vector in that It's not coming over email, which is highly watched right now. It's not coming through your web filters, which is highly watched right now. But then
Right.
Teams data, most of that's encrypted to the backend server, so it's a nice clean way to get an executable.
So I think I've mentioned this before. There was a customer of mine that went looking for Intuit QuickBooks support, and they went on at Google and they Googled it and they dialed the phone number that came up, top link, but it wasn't Intuit. It was a hacking group out of Pakistan,
right?
And they came very close to giving away remote control, and decided things weren't really making sense. So they knew me really well. They gave me a call, and I asked what number they were using, and I looked it up, and it was absolutely not a number. So they hung up. But I could see that being used instead, because it's even less egregious. It's even less of an ask. It's a big ask for me to say, okay, give me remote control of your system.
Right.
It's a much less ask to say, hey, join me on this meeting. I'll give you a tool you can run.
Right.
That's a lower threshold ask. And really that's what social engineering is all about. It's about getting someone to do enough to fulfill your purposes without them realizing how much they're opening themselves up to.
Yeah.
This one's a low tech hack. It's just another way to deploy a piece of malware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Careful
the
out
engineering,
there, people.
The engineering of social. I think that's our title this week.
I know,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it is a lot of social engineering. Unfortunately, humans are typically the weakest link in any computer system. So
Yeah, PEBCAC.
Mm-hmm.
Problem
PEBCAC means?
exists between keyboard and chair.
Almost always. It's almost always the problem.
Either that or we'd open up with the ID10T. That's an ID10T error. You gotta
Yeah. And if you don't know what that means, write it out.
write it down.
Yeah.
You don't know what that means, write it down and read it back.
All right. This one I really didn't understand all that much. The Red Cross. State hackers breached our network using Zoho bug. What's that all about?
Zoho and the breach actually did disclose 515,000 people that are in the Restoring Families Links program, which is a program that helps you reunite families separated by war, disaster, and migration.
So first of all, what's Zoho?
So Zoho is a family of products that give you the ability to do certain things on the network in a management capacity. And this particular one, if I remember correctly, was a self-service portal for users to be able to reset their own passwords and manage their accounts and that sort of thing. But there does exist an exploit in this version of Zoho. And this is linking to CVE 2020-2140 539 for anybody who wants to track it. But this is the AD Self-Service Plus Enterprise Password Management solution. There's the ability for any attacker to run any command they want on the server.
Wow.
So notice in that CVE, it was 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So that actually happened last year, and this was already patched.
Wow.
But the patch wasn't applied.
Which is really a shame, because you can actually look back at this and say, it was widely known. So this is where SBOM would be very useful. So I was talking to somebody from CISA and NTIA, the two agencies that are most involved in trying to get information out to businesses. I was on a panel discussion with them this morning, and one of the things they talked about is getting in SBOM to be, in that software bill of materials, to be something that's more approachable, easier to do. And if you had an SBOM, if you knew all the software that was running in your environment, you could subscribe to some kind of alerts, or you could at least, when you saw an alert come out, you could say, does anything I have apply to this?
Right.
And that bug might come up and you might be able to patch it. We need to get in a system where it's harder for people to miss this stuff.
Right.
Because they wouldn't have gotten hacked.
Well, and it's an interesting question because, the Zoho software, I don't know whether it was an external component that they included or whether it was just terrible coding in the application itself that led to this bug. So, but there's got to be a better way to do this than, keeping an eye on the security pulse and listening to our podcast every week to hear whether you should patch something or not.
Patching should become...
Yeah, but patching what?
Everything.
Like, I'll tell you, I don't know when the last time I looked to see if my HP printer has a patch.
Yeah, that's true.
right? And in espionage sense, like HP printers have actually been used to steal lots of data and breach tons of networks. And I don't know that I've ever applied a driver to that.
Your printer is the laughing stock of the staff, so I can understand.
Thank you. I'm gonna get a line printer. So no, but it's interesting because like take people like the Red Cross, they're busy, saving lives and helping people.
Right.
And then you have attackers who then go in there and take advantage of the fact that they're just not keeping their equipment up to date, which sucks.
Wow, I almost made a joke about if only there was a patching service that would just do this for us, but then Patrick would come in with, "You stupid idiot, that would be stupid." Because then that's more convenient. And what happens when it's convenient?
Right?
Well, so actually there is automatic patching in Windows. And most systems have a button for, keep it updated. It's not a bad idea. It's just you have to also have someone to check on it to make sure the patching is happening, that downloads didn't fail, that you didn't run out of disk space. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. It requires care and feeding. And it's like backups. My bet is almost everyone listening to this thinks they have a backup. And I said it that way explicitly. They think they have a backup.
Yeah.
But do they really have a backup?
When's
or
the last
do they
time you
have
checked?
Well, and how do you check? You have to restore it to
Right.
check. You can't just look to say, "Oh, that looks like a backup." Because in that case, you won't find out that it's failed, that the backup is corrupted until you try to restore it.
So
And I've seen that
last
happen.
night I was running sound at this, let's just call it a television studio for lack of a better word. It was an internet kind of streaming studio. And there was a band and all this stuff. And the guy who runs it has multiple cameras, and they're all using network video, so video over Ethernet, and lots of devices, right? And, just about time for us to start recording, and something doesn't work. And it turns out the solution is to turn it off and turn it back on again.
Now it's good.
And and that has to happen like right before production time. And not only that, but then you go into the software, and the software has like this option that you have to set to the wrong option and apply, and then back to the right option in order for it to even work. And you don't learn that stuff, So we're talking afterwards, and I said, when was the last time you just updated the firmware in those things? And he goes, "Oh my God, I can't even imagine that job." Right? He's bought all these toys, bought all these switches, these network things, and audio and video switches, and has no idea if the firmware is up to date. Not just for security, but for operation,
Right?
Yeah. And a lot of these problems may be related to firmware.
They might
be fixed.
Yeah, because
Well,
guess
and we
what?
find a
Somebody
lot of
else
security
probably,
problems that way.
because probably somebody else found the bug before, and it's been patched since. All right, anyway, let's talk about Russia, because, they're not in the news. We haven't heard anything about Russia lately.
No, they've been so quiet.
They've been so quiet. They just like to keep to themselves, Russia does. What? What's the matter? What?
Their neighbors barely know they're there.
Yeah.
Until they're really there.
We're trying to defend against a neighbor. What? Anyway, so this story, U.S. says Russian state hackers breach defense contractors.
And this seems like this has been an ongoing effort from Russia, and I'm not surprised, honestly. But
this is just spy games. I get more upset when I see, and maybe I'm going to sound completely out of character here. You should verify that it's me. I get more upset when they attack a hospital with ransomware than I do them going after a defense contractor or the defense industry, because that's what we did. That's the spy game. That's
right.
That's that's espionage at nation state level. I expect that. And so this isn't as shocking a story as something else might be to me. Am I wrong there? Is all hacking bad or?
No. I mean, it's expected. Let's put it that way. You expect Russia to do this kind of espionage because it's in the benefit of the state, in the interest of the state.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not surprising that they're picking cleared defense contractors. It may be surprising, although how do you get a list of cleared defense contractors?
From a spy, probably.
Target. Probably, or the OPM hack, I guess, the Office of Personnel Management. I know that was hacked a while ago, and that's everybody who got clearances was leaked. So possibly that we're seeing that data coming out where, they're using that as a hit list. But yeah, that would be my bigger concern is, they're getting targeted, and I get it, and they're getting targeted, at home and all sorts of things. But where's that list coming from? Yeah. But not surprising. You're absolutely right, Patrick. These are spy games. We've seen this since the dawn of the internet. So.
It's kind of like headline: cat attacks mouse.
Moose and squirrel get away.
Moose and squirrel escape unarmed.
Oh man, I actually have a friend from Kiev, which I guess they're pronouncing it Kyiv now.
Kyiv, yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend, and he does talk like that. He's like, "No, it's good. What?" So he might get, if he's listening, he might actually get upset that I'm.
Is he from Kiev? I thought he was from Russia.
No, he's from Kiev.
Okay.
Oh,
right.
well.
Or Kyiv, as we should say.
We've been pronouncing it wrong all this, and it's, by the way, Ukraine, not the Ukraine. Yeah.
Why do we add the? In front
I
of
don't know.
Ukraine.
Maybe
Nobody says the Russia.
right.
It's like
Although they do say the United States.
It's like the Taj Mahal.
The Connecticut.
Yeah. The
The New
Well,
Hampshire.
it is the New Hampshire. I will say that.
Yes.
Well, okay.
We wanted to close out with happy notes.
Happy notes.
But there are none to be found.
Yeah, so thanks, guys. No, I'm only kidding. So Microsoft has been pushing really hard in the make things more secure realm, and we talked about this last week. So in April, Microsoft is disabling all macros for anything that has the mark of the web. So anything that's downloaded over the web, anything that came from a zip file that was from the web, anything that comes from the internet is all going to be mark of the web, no macros. You can enable them again, but it'll be hard.
Yeah.
Right? It'll be clear that you're running code from the internet that you don't know where it potentially came from.
Okay.
So in that, also in this past week, so we already talked about that, but in this past week, Microsoft has also said what they want to do is turn on their Microsoft Defender attack surface reduction configurations. So Defender, obviously the native antivirus that's sitting on your Windows computer that you can turn off if you want to, although we always recommend you keep on. What's neat about this attack surface reduction and what they call credential guard, the first thing we do when we breach a computer, so we're on red team engagements all the time where we're laterally moving around a network. So we'll break into a network. We'll then
with permission.
Oh yeah, with permission. And then we'll use a username and password or an account for a low privilege account. And we keep moving around the network laterally until we can escalate our privileges. And once we escalate our privileges, when we try and do what's called dumping credentials, we're pulling the secrets out of that particular system because we're running as an administrator now. And we can find all sorts of goodies like usernames and passwords. We can find domain accounts. Sometimes we find domain administrative accounts with clear text passwords. Right, and it gives us access to the entire network. Credential Guard is supposed to stop that. So what Credential Guard does is it knows when you're attempting to do what I'm talking about, which is extracting those local secrets from the local security authority, and it shuts that down. It doesn't allow that to happen, which is awesome. I think that's going to shut down a lot of attacks that move laterally on enterprise networks. Not so much at home, so home users, you don't really need to worry about it that much. I don't think too many people are laterally moving from your TV to your computer, and you're probably not running a domain.
You've done
it. I have, yes. But from a corporate network sense, this is actually really cool. I think it's a step in the right direction that's going to help out quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
The downside to this is it's not really hard to bypass. So if you're an administrator on a box, and you're trying to pull down all of the secrets off of this computer, and Microsoft says, no, you can't do that. What you could do is install another antivirus. Mm-hmm. So if you install a different antivirus, Microsoft disables all of this, shuts down the credential guard, and you're an administrator. You can do whatever you want, right? So you install a new antivirus, boom, it shuts it down.
Yeah.
Another way to do it is just to add exclusion. See, this is my advice to the hackers who are listening.
Yes.
Another way to
doing
do
that.
it is to
Another
have to
moment
have
of
that
career
everywhere.
advice for criminals.
Career advice. Another way to do it is actually to exclude your tools that you're running to dump the passwords and processes from Defender. It's a simple command line. You can add an exclusion directory and say, yeah, don't look at these tools. You check your credentials for everything else, but don't stare here. So it can be bypassed, but I still think, we shouldn't poo-poo it. Microsoft's moving in the right
it's
direction.
a good thing.
It's defense in depth. If it just because something's not a one size fits all, fix everything solution doesn't mean it's not something we should do.
Right. Agreed.
So
there's some more good news from Microsoft of blocking more macros in Office, right? Or is it the same story we talked about last week?
No, it's the same story, but it's getting more airtime because I think the world is realizing once this goes into effect in April, it really is going to help out quite a bit in a pretty large delivery of malware is right now over macros, just stuff we've seen for the last decade and a half, which hopefully will start to go away.
And the last good news from Microsoft is about a possible deal where they might be buying cybersecurity firm Mandiant. What's that all about?
I mean, if you look at the top cybersecurity firms in the United States, I mean, we're number one, but Mandiant's a close number two. So
You hear that?
I'm kidding.
Do you hear that, people?
So they're actually a massive cybersecurity, consultancy. They do a fantastic job, and I think it's good. Microsoft has been on a sort of a rampage of building what they can, and if they can't, then buying it. So if they pick up Mandiant, I think that actually is going to help them a ton in their cybersecurity offensive capabilities.
That's great.
And analysis capabilities. I know we were dealing with a company called Refirm, which was a bunch of ex-NSA reverse engineers that created can reverse firmware and determine if it's vulnerable. And Microsoft scooped them up 9-12 months ago as well. So I think they're moving in the right direction. They're doing a great job in making sure that they're getting the right talent in the right place to make sure that we're as secure as possible, which is good.
Well, Microsoft got kicked in the teeth over a decade ago about security, and while Bill Gates was still in charge,
right.
and I think that's still in the DNA of the company. There's still a desire to never go back to the point where they're considered completely out to lunch on security.
Yep.
Right.
And that's good for all of us. But we just need everybody to have that attitude.
Right. Well, that feels like the end, guys.
I think so.
Good talk.
Yeah, really good talk. I learned something.
I'll try and bring more positive things, but you know what? From my side of the house, all of these positive things would just make me sad. I'm gonna have to work harder to bypass them.
I think if we talk positive things, we'll have to change the topic of the show because cybersecurity is not about positive things these days.
No, it's not. Yeah.
But plus, I get more excited about the things that burn the internet to the ground. But that's just
you do. That's fine. That's your charm.
All right, guys. May the force be with you. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.